Dave Simon and his co-hosts are completing the remaining finishing touches for tonight's episode. If you are watching the replay, you can skip to the 4-minute and 54-second mark to get to Dave's intro. While you are waiting, watching live, take a look at the news and articles about pro wrestling and MMA from The Authority, the Ringside Report Network. Our website is at ringsidereport.net. That's ringsidereport.net.
Please wait. Hold on. Keep waiting. Almost done. 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 Subscriber is speaking at the moment. Subscriber is speaking at the moment. Subscriber is speaking at the moment. Please wait. Hold on. Keep waiting. Almost done. 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 Subscriber is speaking at the moment. Subscriber is speaking at the moment. Subscriber is speaking at the moment.
Welcome to today's broadcast from the Ringside Report Network. We are a viewer and listener-supported creative team. We would really appreciate it if you became a recurring supporter at membership.ringsidereport.net. While you are waiting, watching live, take a look at the news and articles about pro wrestling and MMA, and while there, check out our exclusive merch, including great jiu-jitsu gear from the Ringside Report Network. Our website is at ringsidereport.net. It's ringsidereport.net.
Subscriber is speaking at the moment.
Yes, it is Ringside Report MMA tonight on the show. Islam Makhachev stripped of his UFC championship. UFC 317 has a new main event, and AJ has a big night out.
Let's go!
Big night, AJ. Big man, there he is. Ooh.
What's up, man?
There you go.
What's up, my homie? What's up, my brother
dude?
from another mother?
Ooh.
Oh, man,
What's
you know
up,
what?
man?
I was going to wear my ringside t-shirt, and it got a little dirty. So we could have matched, man. We could have been like Gimos.
Well, you could go get yours at
You know what a Gimo?
merch.ringsidereport.net. How about that?
That's a nice one.
Merch.ringsidereport.net for all your Ringside Report merch.
Actually, the back is nice on that. Can you show the back? Show your backside, Dave.
I gotta spin. It's complicated.
Look at this guy. Look, so that's the front. Look how nice that is. What does it say? Wrestling and MMA Network. Look at how nice that is. Ringside. So if you go on ringsidereport.net, click on the merch, you're able to buy a classic. That's a classic. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Look at that guy, man. He's shaving. He's looking good. He's got a haircut.
We've got a new welterweight champion again.
We do? Again?
What happened to GSP, man? Nobody can hold the welterweight championship anymore in that UFC. Makes me miss the days of Kamaru Usman. The Usman. Us?
Uzi.
4 letters, 1 word. Yeet. That's for you, Johnny. I see Big Johnny in the chat. I see Angelo
Big John?
in the chat. 4 letters,
Man,
1
my
word. Yeet.
Listen, talk about Johnny. All I've been doing for the last, I'd say, an hour and a half was trying to find Johnny North videos for my kid. The guy's into Johnny North like big time. He's got to see Johnny North videos. Actually, that's another thing. I went on his Instagram. So, Johnny, listen, you got to post more of your fighting videos, not just the highlight reels, the promo packages. Get some of the fights there.
Okay. We got a lot of MMA news, AJ. There's a lot happening. Yeah. It's an interesting time in the sport. The summer is heating up, the weather is hot, and the sport is heating up a little bit. It's been a slow year. It's been a little slow. But things are picking up. Business is picking up, like the great Jim Ross would say.
Well,
and we're sending our thoughts to Jim Ross as he revealed today he's got cancer. So I'm hoping that Jim Ross
he does.
Has a speedy recovery and we see him back on AEW TV soon. The greatest voice in the history of professional wrestling. Jim Ross, good old JR. Hope he's doing all right. We got fight news to talk about, AJ. UFC 315 was a big deal. You were there in the building, VIP style, in the skybox, living it up with all the VIPs. And you saw what we saw, Della Maddalena defeating Belal Muhammad. Now, that set off a domino effect. The win set things in motion for 2 divisions and multiple championships. 3 divisions, really. You have the featherweight champion, Ilia Topuria, who was waiting for the winner of this fight, because if Belal Muhammad had won, Ilia Topuria would have fought Islam Makhachev. That would have been the fight for the UFC lightweight championship. Ilia vacated the featherweight championship to go up to 155 pounds and fight for the championship. But Islam Makhachev didn't seem interested in fighting Ilia Topuria at all. Islam Makhachev said if Della Maddalena wins, then he would be willing to move up to fight the welterweight champion. Now, he wouldn't fight Belal because they trained together, so Islam was only willing to move up to welterweight to fight the champion there if it's not Belal Muhammad. So now Della Maddalena's champion, so Islam says, okay, I am the 155-pound champion of the UFC. I'm going to move up to 170 pounds and challenge the champion there. Now, the UFC then seems to have stripped Islam of the 155-pound championship, when it was my impression that Islam would be moving up to 170 and then possibly moving back down to 155 in his next fight to defend both belts. But the UFC doesn't seem too happy with that because they want two different champions so that they can have those guys fighting more often and more championships defended on the main event of their pay-per-view, right? So they don't want Islam to hold the belt in two weight classes because then say he fights Jack Della in whatever, October, November, he doesn't fight again till, say, sometime next year. Say he only fights twice next year. That means the welterweight championship would be defended once and the lightweight championship would be defended once. And the UFC would rather, if that, it might just be defended. Islam might only fight once next year, which would mean that one belt wasn't defended at all, which is not what the UFC wants. They want belts defended on pay-per-views, which is why they stripped Islam of the belt so that they could make a new main event for UFC 317 being Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira, who's just Chucky Olives, our old pal, the former lightweight champion who's been just kind of kicking around the top of the lightweight division since losing that belt to Islam Makhachev in 2022. He beat Beneil Dariush in his next fight in 2023. He had a 1-1 outing in 2024 with a win over a loss to Arman Tsarukyan and then a win over Michael Chandler. And for some reason that I don't really know, Arman Tsarukyan isn't fighting for the title, even though he was supposed to fight Islam in his last fight for the title. And he beat Chucky Olives. So what's Chucky Olives doing in this title fight? Right? I don't really get that part. I don't know who's calling for Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira for the lightweight championship. I don't see how that makes sense in any world. But that's your main event for UFC 317 for some reason. But Arman Tsarukyan
Strange.
Had an injury that he sustained like the day before during his weight cut before UFC 311 earlier this year when he was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev. And Tsarukyan, for some reason, not fighting. Don't know why. He's not getting a title shot. It's Charles Oliveira, which is weird. That's not a fight that people are calling for. Now, is it a bad fight? Absolutely not. Topuria, any fight that Topuria's in is going to be interesting, and Topuria at 155 is interesting, and Oliveira's a legit threat at 155, but he's not the number one contender. So why is he in a championship fight here? So there's that part, and then you have Islam Makhachev fighting Jack Della Maddalena, who's the newly crowned welterweight champion, who's basically unknown, who beat a guy who's basically unknown in Belal Muhammad, like not household names here. And Islam, who was, on the cusp of becoming a big name for the UFC, now vacates or is stripped of his championship in a division that he's dominated for so long, that his coach and good friend and training partner Khabib was dominating for so long. You have the story of the Dagestan run of the 155 division, but that's done because he's going up to 170 to fight the Australian Jack Della, possibly in Australia. But now, the craziest part of this, AJ, okay, is that because Islam is like chomping at the bit, ready to go, he wants to fight, the UFC's trying to rush Jack Della, who just went through a 5-round war with Belal Muhammad to win the championship. So there's already talk that the UFC might strip Jack Della if he's not ready at some point this year to fight Islam, even though there's about 6 months left in the year, and he just got pretty banged up. None of this really makes sense. And I know the UFC announces it in a way where you're supposed to be like, wow, this is great. But I sit back and go, well, what the hell happened? Everybody wanted to see Topuria and Islam. That was the fight people were calling for. And now They're fighting other guys for some reason? Because the UFC couldn't figure out a way to make Islam happy enough to stick around at 155 and fight Topuria? Islam was willing to fight Topuria if Belal had won, but Belal didn't win. Now all of a sudden everything has to change because, well, Islam decides he's going up to 170. Why is everything being catered to Islam Makhachev at this point? Why?
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching
Money,
for
man.
who? Cha-ching for who, AJ? Because to me, and I think you would agree, the big money fight would be the 145 champion moving up to fight the 155 champion. Because Topuria, who last year was Fighter of the Year, beat Volkanovski, beat Holloway in the same year, which no featherweight in the history of the UFC has ever done. Two of the kings of the division toppled in the same year by this phenom Topuria, who wants to move up and fight Islam, who's like the scariest guy in combat sports. And Islam is like, I'm going to go up and fight Jack Della at 170 because I've cleaned out the division. Like, I like Islam, but he's pissing me off. He's really pissing me off. Did you see what he said? He said he cleaned out the division. And you go, well, there's a bunch of guys you haven't beat. There's a bunch of guys. Like,
Whoa.
off the top, how about Tsarukyan? I know he beat him in a 3-rounder earlier in their career, but, like, he worked his way back, and that was a compelling fight. The Tsarukyan fight was close, and, you know, the rematch would have been interesting. I don't know why the UFC has completely shifted away from that. Also, the UFC is, like, completely forgot about Shavkat Rakhmonov, which we can talk about, who should be fighting for the belt, but instead they're like, well, don't you guys think Garry should fight for the belt? I'm like, no, he just fought Shavkat and lost. Why should Garry fight for the belt? Because he beat Carlos Paredes? Give Shavkat the title shot. Which is another thing. Like, why does Islam get to jump the line and fight Jack Della when Shavkat is clearly the best at 170? And if Islam wins, will Shavkat fight him? Like, what would they fight?
Yeah, I think so.
mean,
they're not from the same team.
If that's what we're setting up, AJ, I could kind of sit and be cool and not be so pissed. If the plan is Islam fights Jack Della, and if he beats him, which is an if, but is possible, if he beats him, then maybe he fights Shavkat, which would be nuts. You know, that would be great. Islam versus Shavkat. That's a good fight. But we're not there yet. We're nowhere near being there. Where we are is Islam versus Jack Della at some point in 2025, maybe. And Topuria now versus Charles Oliveira for the now vacant lightweight championship in the main event of the card at the end of June. June 28th, I think it is. Something like that. Yeah, June 28th, UFC 317. I might not make it for the post show, for the watch along. I might not be there. I just bought tickets.
Where are you going to be? Ooh.
I'm going to the Symphony.
Say what?
Yeah, Nas and a symphony. That's going to be crazy. You know who Nas is?
I have a friend named Nas. Does that count?
Nah.
Then he's not in the symphony.
Well, he's a rapper. The rapper Nas, he's doing a show with like a symphony. And I just got tickets today.
That's
I
not
was
a
like,
cool
yeah,
Nas.
I gotta
Is that
see
a
that.
cool
That's
name for a
crazy.
rapper?
Nostradamus.
I got a schnoz. You know what I mean? Have you ever heard that?
His
My
name
name
is
is
Nasir
Nas.
Jones.
I've got the schnoz.
Anyways, he's a
What's his
great
name?
rapper. Nasir Jones.
Dude,
You've
the
never
name's
heard of
gotta go.
Nas? I wish Fred was here. Fred's not here because his daughter has soccer,
And
so
see-
he's doing that.
Freddie. Yeah, Freddie's busy tonight.
Yeah.
I know P. Diddy because there's a lot of him in the news.
Well,
a lot of P.
he
Diddy
knows
stuff.
Nas, and Nas knows him. They know each other.
Oh, they know each other.
Well, they're both from New York. They're both rappers from the 90s from New York. There's definitely pictures of Diddy and Nas together. Not to say Nas was involved in anything that Diddy was involved in.
Well,
just
that's
to say there are
Was he part of
definitely
the
pictures
parties?
of Diddy and Nas. Diddy
I learned
and
a lot
Nas.
this week, man.
Nas may have been involved with Diddy stuff. Like, it's not clear.
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you
There's
something,
a lot
Dave.
of pictures
This
of
week,
Diddy and Nas together.
Yeah, I learned a lot about the P. Diddy parties, the freak out. What are they? The freakouts or freak-offs?
Freak off.
Freak-off. Sounds like a typical Italian like wedding night party, you know?
Okay,
like,
that's bad.
I was
That's
like,
not good.
mine is the Vaseline.
Okay, let's steer away from that.
Now that you think about it.
And get back to MMA because that's more important, AJ. Islam.
What's up, Angelo? Where you been?
Like Islam.
Listen, can I?
And
Can I say
Islam
my 2 cents?
and Jack Della. I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
That's pretty
Islam
cool,
moving
man.
up
That's
to
pretty
170
cool.
is cool. I don't hate it, but like, it's not what I wanted. UFC used to give me what I want. Now they're giving me some fights that are like, yeah, this is all right, I guess. Can you give me the one I want?
Look, man. Listen, I'm not gonna listen. I was ready to make a big speech if I saw Dana White on Saturday. I was ready to. I had it all written down. I was like, Dana, listen, I got to take 5 minutes of your time. I got to talk to you about UFC ticket sales, this and that. And in the end, that is a genius. So I think, listen, I agree with you. It gets. Who's that? Who's
That's
that guy?
Nas and Diddy.
Is that the Schnaz?
There's Nas, JC,
Is that
and
a
Diddy.
freakout party?
You know,
The
there's a
freakouts.
lot of pictures of them together. A lot.
Who's that guy? Who's
I
that
don't know,
guy?
but there's a
Who's the
lot
white
of
guy there?
pictures of Nas and Diddy.
Ooh, that's a nice
Diddy.
jacket. The guy with the green jacket. That's
There
nice.
they are again
Wow,
together.
Now we're
wow, they
talking.
spent a lot of time
Look
together.
at that, man.
Very
AJ could wear
happy.
that. I like that.
They are good friends.
There's a nice lady there.
Oh boy,
I like the lady.
that
like
was
the
Mary J.
ladies?
Blige you're talking about. Show some respect.
Wish she.
I don't like it, AJ. I don't
Listen,
like.
I'm gonna tell you-
I don't like any of
Listen,
it. I mean, you know, it's
No,
just
man, you brought
it's
up-
not
you brought
what
up
we're
great
supposed
points.
to be doing here. We're not giving
I
the number
know.
one contenders the fights. We're not really getting to the point. We're skirting around the issue in the UFC, and I'd like to see the best fight for the championship. Enough of this nonsense.
But you know what? Like you brought up a lot of good points, but a lot of things are not directed to you did. But there's a lot of marketing involved, and I was gonna wrap it up or circle it back to what I was saying about Dana being a genius. What it comes down to is this. I agree with you with the shaved cat. Shaved cat is getting like
Screwed.
sort of put in the corner. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's getting screwed.
He's
And I
getting
agree with you.
Magomeded.
We should
Remember when they did this to Magomed Ankalaev?
Yeah.
They kept him on the
Yeah.
sidelines for so long when he was obviously the best.
Yeah.
Then what happened
Yeah,
when they give him
yeah.
the title shot? What happened?
Yep. You're right.
Pereira's scared too, by the way. We need to talk about Pereira. backing
You
him
think
again.
so?
Not scared, but
Man,
like.
listen,
But
man. I
so
have
Pereira
my, I
didn't
have
get
my ifs
hacked.
about
He
that
for
fight.
sure didn't get hacked. For sure.
You think so? He said he got a hack.
Oh!
For sure.
Dude, for sure he didn't get hacked.
I don't know if
Pereira.
he can, like he
no.
might be worse than me, like being on the internet.
Jeez. Pereira, that was nuts.
You know
that
what?
whole thing was nuts. We'll talk about Pereira too. But
So let me get back to
Yeah.
like why I think Dana is a genius. And to be honest, like, you know, we weren't the only show. I think there was like, you know, mainstream media, you know, other podcasters and everything. Like, you know, we were showing like ticket sales for the UFC 315 in Montreal, and it didn't look great the day of. I talked to one of my friends who's like a major scalper, like I was saying to you at the Bell Center, and like he was like not really happy with what the UFC ticket prices were at, and it was a whole business. Like it looked like a disaster. But let me tell you, man, I don't know what happened.
they
But
gave
on
away
the
a lot of
last
tickets.
day, they didn't give away
They gave 'em
squad, man.
away. They gave him
No,
a
they didn't,
lot of
man.
tickets away.
Listen, everybody had to pay for those tickets. They dropped
No,
the
they
ticket
didn't.
prices from $497 to $250. I know because I know the guys that bought. But the thing is this, is that the Bell Center, just hear me out, Dave. Regardless, it was an insane night of
Right.
partying. I've never heard anything louder than that. I've been to Canadian
Oh,
games,
please.
and nothing comes close to that. I've been to like playoff games, and nothing comes close to what was happening at the Bell Center for UFC 315.
Were you
The
at the
amount of people
GSP
that came in-
fights?
Yeah, I was at the GSP, bro. Yeah, I was loud. But on Saturday, you know what I think it was? Is that the expectations were so low. And all of a sudden, I was getting texts from everybody, like from people in the crowd. They'd be like, Anthony, this is like the greatest. It's just rejuvenating the fact that I want to be, more involved in seeing what the UFC is all about. I'm like, I'm come back to the UFC. I can't believe it's this good. I can't believe I haven't been watching for so long. And I'm telling you, I can show you all the messages that came in. And I was like, holy shit. Because the expectations were so low. But Dana White was able to fill up that place to a packed capacity, man. It was insane. And it was so loud and it was so insane. It was one of the best parties I've been to like in a decade, dude. It was insane. But that's what I'm trying to tell you is that when I was going there, I was like, the UFC will never come back to Montreal. The UFC, like ticket sales looks gonna suck. There's gonna be nobody there. And then, man, slowly but surely, man, it just started getting louder and louder and crazier. And I know people that were working outside of the Bell Center, and they gave out, listen to this. I got some fun facts. So they give out like bracelets for people that smoke, right? So in general, at the Montreal Canadiens games, they give about like 1,000 of those bracelets for people to go out of the Bell Center, have a smoke, come back. This person told me she gave out over 10,000 of those for people going in and out. So you know that the rest of those people, like the majority of fighters or jiu-jitsu fighters, Muay Thai fighters, boxers, MMA people are probably not smoking as much as the regular fans in a sense, based on their training. But she told me, she goes, it was insane. I was outside and I was giving out 10,000 bracelets for people to go in and out. People were going wild inside. People were going wild outside. And it turned out to be an extremely amazing event. And I learned something else too.
It's also like an 8-hour show, so you might want to go in and out of the building at some point.
I know, but it was insane, dude. It was insane. I'm telling you, I had like the greatest time. I mean, the crowd that I was with that actually I didn't know everybody. And a lot of them were like, you're AJ from Ringside Report, tell Dave Simon this. And I was trying to I was going to try to call in, but I had no way to call in because it was too damn loud. And I was in a lodge area and it was too damn loud. But all to say is this, there was a couple of things that I learned on Saturday, especially with some fighters not wanting to come to Montreal. Because, listen, this is what I was told to me, is that, a lot of the fighters, the big fighters, don't really want to fight in Canada, specifically in Quebec, because of the taxes that they have to pay. I found out that they were paying over 35% the taxes. And I was like, holy shit, it doesn't make sense. So to come and fight in Montreal, even if you win a big purse or whatever, you're losing 35% of that. Still, you got to pay all your team and everything else, travel expenses. So based on the card that we got, it kind of justified why we didn't see some major names, but still there was 2 title fights going on. And at the end of it all, even though everything looked like it was going to be a snooze fest and a disaster, it turned out to be the loudest crowd I've ever heard and one of the most exciting cards I've ever seen. And to be honest, it was really, really good considering all these other factors. And you know what? Dana White is a genius. He pulled it off, man. Hands down.
Yeah, that wasn't my impression. That was not my impression at all.
Dude, I know.
And the ticket sales, I mean, come on now. I mean, we know people that got free tickets that, we know.
Yeah, but somebody's paying for those free tickets, dude. No matter what, those free tickets are being paid for. You know what I'm saying?
By the UFC themselves, so they can say that they had a big gate. You don't have 7,000 tickets sold, and then the next day you have 19,000. It doesn't make sense.
Listen, they couldn't get their tickets. Nobody outside, there was no tickets to be bought. Everybody went. If you went in a couple of days earlier, you could have probably got a ticket for $150, $200. You know what the ticket prices were going
in that way.
No, I understand what you're saying, Dave. But in the end,
accurate. You're giving facts that are not facts, AJ. I'm telling you facts.
What are you talking about?
Disputing them.
No, you're just for 10 people that got it from a gym. Gyms have to pay for their tickets.
No, it's way more than that.
Yes, but gyms get tickets.
Okay.
But they only get tickets on the fighters that are going to be in there, so they get a family amount. And I can tell you this for a fact that even George St. Pierre wasn't even able to give a ticket to a friend that sponsored him throughout his career. You only have a limited amount of tickets. So if this guy got 10, you know what I'm saying? He had 2 fighters that were one of them fighting for the gym and another one that's sort of affiliated with the gym. So they get some extra tickets. But in the end, there's only a little handful of family tickets that they get. All the rest they've got to buy, And let me tell you, man, everybody that came in last minute that I know of, all bought. They bought their tickets for $250 each.
Sure. How then? I mean, I'm not going to ask you this math question because you're not going to be able to make it make sense, AJ. You're going to find an excuse.
Maybe.
But they said it was the biggest gate, the biggest non-hockey gate in the Bell Center, right? Biggest non-hockey gate at the Bell Center. Now, they sold about 19,000 tickets. They didn't sell out, right? But they said it was the biggest non-hockey gate at the Bell Center.
Dude, it was packed in there. It was packed. Even
how
the floor
packed
seats
can
were
it
all taken.
really be if like they're selling tickets for $10,000? They're selling tickets in the Reds for over $1,000. So how did they not break a hockey gate? Because I can't imagine. Now, Johnny is on the chat. Angelo is in the chat. They could correct me if I'm wrong. But I cannot imagine that the Montreal Canadiens are ever selling tickets for $10,000 a piece. Are the seats right behind the bench $10,000 in the playoffs?
Not at all.
Right?
Listen, I know.
So do you understand what I'm trying to say here, AJ? It doesn't really... Like,
yeah, but if you look at the monetary
way that
value
they
of
sold
it,
that many tickets if they didn't beat
100%.
a hockey game. As far
listen,
as
a
money.
hockey game tickets in like the best seats, you're looking around $2, $3.
That's
the
what
top
I'm saying.
seats in the bleacher. Yeah, but that's at the Reds at the bottom. The top nosebleeders were $497 before they started bringing them down.
For
Some
UFC.
people were able to buy them for $250.
Yes, that's
for
exactly
UFC.
what I'm saying, man.
But that's what I'm saying is
the
you were still
UFC
able to
tickets
get
are
people to
more
buy
expensive
$3,000
than
tickets.
hockey tickets, and they didn't break a
still got
hockey
19,000.
record, so they didn't
Bro.
sell as many tickets as a hockey game would. They didn't sell even close to it
But
because
a
they
lot-
were
but a lot
selling
of tickets-
for $10,000
Yeah,
a
but-
piece. Do you understand the
Listen,
math
a lot
there?
of yeah, bro. But you know what you forget to remember is that a lot of the Red seats that are
Here we
at
go.
the Bell Center are corporate tickets. So at the UFC event, there's the lodges that are corporate, but a lot of the people in the Reds were regular UFC fans. The regular Joes, that's who's buying them, not
You don't
corporate.
understand,
And I know
bro.
because I get
It's okay.
corporate tickets at the Bell Center. I do understand the 19,000 that filled up might have not been a full like a Montreal
They
Canadiens.
weren't paying.
hockey
They
game-
didn't all pay, is what I'm saying.
Yes, they did.
A lot
bro.
of them
They all-
didn't pay. You think they all paid?
I don't believe.
You
Yes,
fucking crazy,
100%.
man.
You want me to get the top scalper of Montreal on our show, and he'll tell you fact for fact? I'll tell you. I'll get the number one
not a
scalper
thing.
across Canada.
It's not a
Yes,
thing.
he is. There is a thing.
Okay.
He's been a thing for over 25 years.
Holy shit.
know?
It's just
Trust me.
facts
Thi-
that you just dispute because it's a real
Listen,
thing.
man.
But whatever. You want to be
Yeah,
a cheerleader, you could go and be a cheerleader for the
I am a
UFC.
cheerleader
That's
because
okay.
I was there
Yeah,
to
go
see
be
it,
a
man,
fucking
and I
cheerleader.
know.
But I'm going to tell you what's really happening.
The real happening is tickets
No,
were sold.
the real happening is not
just
what you're saying
because
because
a
you're
team,
fucking
because
doing
a team,
UFC
because you know a
propaganda.
couple of bro. Listen, no, you're
You buy
propaganda
into
because the
every
thing is that
propaganda
you're saying
on the internet, AJ.
no,
You
because you're
fucking,
talking
of course,
about
buy
a
into
team of
Dana
guys
White's.
that you talk about a team of guys that got free tickets. Yes, every fighter gets free tickets. We know that. I've been involved in it long enough to know that. You know what I'm saying? They get free tickets, but it's a limited amount of tickets that they get.
Seat fillers.
4, maybe 5.
They have
Yeah,
seat
for
fillers.
teams. The rest are actually people paying, man. The UFC was a success, no matter how much you're mad, and I understand. But the bottom line is that people were paying top dollars
You're
to sit in the
ridiculous.
nosebleeds.
You are
I know,
ridiculous.
but it was a great event, man, and I can't deny. If it sucked, I'd be the first one. I was
It
going there
didn't
with
come off
like,
that way on TV
it's
as a great event.
what? Are you
Fights
crazy?
weren't
Are you
great.
serious? I
Yeah,
thought
it
the
was
fights were
kinda
exciting.
boring.
Not really, man. Not, like
Well,
it was.
you were
I found
excited
it-
by a prelim at the Apex. Like, come on, man.
No, man, it was phenomenal, dude. I'll be honest. That's
There's
my
not a
take.
fight you've
I
ever
can say
seen
what
that
I
you didn't
want.
think was phenomenal, AJ. And that's
there's a
okay.
few-
You're enthusiastic. I
think-
get it.
It's
I'm
not
just
about
saying,
like
you know.
enthusiasm or whatnot. It's about you. Listen, you could go on Instagram and you can hear
Holy
like my
shit.
intro that was there, and you can hear the crowd. That's factual. That was insane. I couldn't even hear myself talking. That's
Yeah,
how
of course, people
wild
are gonna
it
be
was.
screaming. I mean, if there's
No,
19,000
they're screaming,
people in a
bro. I've been
building-
to
I'm not
I've
saying
been to
there
a Michael
wasn't
Jackson concert, and I
19,000.
can tell you,
saying a lot
you
of them
kids on
didn't
the
pay.
block where women were going nuts. This was insane.
Yeah.
And it's not only my opinion, bro. There's like that went along the bank because the expectations were so low, and it turned out to be like top event. But that's my opinion. That's AJ's opinion. Take that to the bank. And listen, the Canadians are out, but the UFC was there. You know? And a lot of people made money on Saturday night. You know? The vendors, the bars, the restaurants. After the show, man, it was jammed, the streets. You know? All like UFC fans, you know? I ended up going to Hurley's. You know, Dana White was there earlier in the day. You know, but let me tell you, it was insane.
The attendance at UFC 83, the first UFC in Montreal back in 2008, 21,390 total sellout, a gate of just over 5 million, which is 1 million less than what they made this time around in 2025. 6 million is the announce gate
Success,
for the UFC.
man.
But if the
Success.
UFC buys the tickets, yeah, well, that's still, I mean,
it's a success, dude. Listen, what it comes
they
down
should,
to is
no,
that
no,
the UFC.
I mean, that doesn't really make sense either, because, like, if they're only making $1 million more, right, and they sold only, say, 2,000 fewer tickets, the ticket prices, though, are still way more than they were back at UFC 83.
100%.
So,
100%.
like, shouldn't they have made way more than 6 million? If they really
Well, if
got
you look at
19,
20
you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to
sense.
fuck with their business. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. Because I looked at the tickets that were available a day before or 2 days before. I think it was a couple days before the event, and they were all available. And then the day of the show, nothing was available. And you're like, okay, well, they didn't just all get sold in 2 days. Something weird happened here. I'm trying to investigate and figure out what the hell happened. So they had an attendance of 19,000, but a gate of 6 million. So they're charging way more for the tickets. They should be if the paid attendance was 19,000. You would think they would have made way more than 6 million when the paid attendance was 21,000 in 2008 and they were charging way less for tickets and they made 5 million. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree. I disagree with you because the tickets at the ground level
Here
were
we
like
go.
10 grand at one point with George St. Pierre. $10,000 ground level
Resale.
seat tickets. And I know that
Resale, not from
They
the
were-
Bell Center.
the Bell Center
No.
tickets were between 5 and 10 grand at one
For
point the ground
GSP's
level.
first fight, I'd be
For
really
GSP.
surprised. I doubt it.
Okay, and that's the thing. They were ground level, and
There's no
GSP brought in big celebrities, brought in people that can afford 10 grand, like it's like a drop in the bucket. What I'm just saying is that we're looking at the gate sales and all that kind of stuff. We're not even talking about the merchandise sales and all the rest of stuff. Let's put it this way: at the bottom line, what it comes down to is that the UFC, I thought, would never come back to Montreal, where the UFC and their brass are saying, you know what, we might be doing one show a year in Montreal. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that
They
it's
didn't
going to be
say that.
successful. Yeah, they did. They were
No,
saying
they
it. I'm
didn't.
just saying that's what was
They
being
didn't
said
say
over
that.
there.
I saw the press conference that Dana didn't even
Yeah.
attend. They didn't even say that. They said they're
Dan-
looking
Dana
to come
was-
to Canada
Dana
a
was
couple
at-
times a year. Montreal is
Dana
going
was
to be
at
one of the
Hurley's, man.
destinations. They didn't say once a year in Montreal. They didn't say that.
That's. I'm just saying that's what was being spread over there. They were saying like we'd like to come back once a
Just
year.
because you and your
being it
buddies
for-
are saying that doesn't mean it's actually true.
Listen, I know, but the buddies that were around there and the other ones were like people that were like, affiliated with the UFC. I'm just saying is that's the rumor mill that was being said because of they found that Montreal is a hotbed. It is. Montreal's always been a great place for MMA. We know that. It's just that the ticket prices are extremely high, and I agree with you. At $497 for a nosebleed, most people that work in Quebec are not making such a huge salary comparable to Ontario or Toronto. So regardless, it still was a success, Dave.
All right. Well, I'm
what's
not going
that?
to
What
get
do you-
through to
what do you
you,
know?
so we're going to move on. This is Islam Makhachev saying, difference between me and you, that I cleaned top list in my division, moved to next, but you ran away from two contenders who had consecutive 5 and 9 wins in featherweight division. You are nobody in lightweight division, just a big mouth from Spain with nice haircut. Go get 1 W and we can talk, boy. And then Topuria responded, the difference between you and me is that I am a man and you are a coward. I speak and fight.
Ooh.
You talk and hide. Run away far, leaving no trace. And then something in Russian about him being a boy.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
pretty
look,
harsh, man.
it does appear that Islam is ducking this fight. In a way. But he's still going up to challenge Jack Della, which is not going to be easy. You see how Jack Della defended all those takedowns from Belal?
Oof,
But
it was
Belal is
insane,
not
man.
Islam. But Islam is 155, now moving up to 170. So how does that work with the takedowns? It's not a bad fight, but it's not really the fight the fans were asking for. It's not the fight we were expecting. Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev seem real fun. And they're talking so much, like they're talking to each other, yet they're not fighting. Everybody is like, hey, why don't they just fight? Settle it in the octagon, boys. UFC 315 buys lowest for all the pay-per-views this year from the UFC. So Johnny North is telling me, and he's got credible information. Very low buys from the UFC. Nobody bought this thing, AJ, because nobody cared.
Well, listen, look, I'm not going to dispute those numbers. I'm going to get the numbers for the pay-per-view.
You dispute my numbers and facts, but you don't dispute Johnny North's?
No, I am. I'm going to listen. And the reason why listen, hear me out. The reason why I say that is because everybody was marketing, including our own show here, saying that it was going to be a terrible card. And that's the thing. We were really pushing that narrative that it would be a terrible card and this and that. And it pretty much was. It doesn't buy sales across North America other than Montreal, Quebec. And then a lot of people are a lot of Quebec haters, So I can see the UFC 315 pay-per-views being lower than expected. But you know what? It turned out to be a great card, man. Johnny might have a point there, Dave. I'm just saying.
About UFC 315 having the lowest buys for all the pay-per-views?
Yeah, because everybody was dissing it, man.
Yeah,
it's
because it was a bad card. Because Belal Muhammad is not a draw. Nobody really cared.
It was Dave's fault, Johnny says. Yeah, damn right, man.
Yeah. Everybody listens to me. Obviously, I am the biggest influencer in all of MMA.
Well, you kind of are, because
look how rich and famous we are, AJ. We're doing so well. I'm so big, I'm huge.
The Cadillac
here.
is coming tonight. Listen, man,
I'm so big that the UFC rolled out the red carpet for Fred and me and everybody when they came to town. Right? That's what happened. Is that what happened?
But eventually,
it used to happen.
It will happen.
No, it used to happen. I think there's a decline happening, AJ. I think there's a decline.
Stop dissing them, man.
No, for me, I'm saying.
Not really. I think you're listen. Your questions, and I keep saying it all the time. And people that come on the show probably listening for the first time. First of all, I want to say a congratulations to our Rumble subscribers. We hit the 500 mark on Rumble, so thank you for getting into that new big number. So for people that are listening on Rumble and all the rest, Dave Simon is like pretty famous because when Georges St. Pierre was retiring, Dave is the guy that posed the question.
I think I used to be.
You still are famous, dude. Look at you. Look at this guy, man. Look at that nice clean cut boy there. Look at this guy. Look at this. All to say is
I'm better at jiu-jitsu than I used to be. I'll say that.
Oh, there you go.
I think I'm less famous but more dangerous. Pretty good. I'll take that.
You could still be dangerous and more famous like Joe Rogan. But I'm gonna tell you something. Your questions went viral
the only
around
thing
the world.
dangerous about him is his speech.
Well, I like to have his money. That's what's dangerous, man.
I'll take his
300 million Spotify. That's what I'm trying to tell you, bud. Don't diss the guys. All we need is Joe Rogan to mention our show, and we're at the top. Mind you, I was good with Joe when he came to Montreal.
Give me that bag of money, Joe Rogan. Give me those coins. Those gold coins you carry around with you. Mine now, Joe Rogan. Get out of here with those
shekels.
Hands.
Give me the shekels. And
Joe Rogan couldn't be bothered to make the trip. What a jabroni.
Well, he doesn't like.
It's okay. He's not welcome. Come. He's not welcome here, brother.
He's welcome, man. AJ will welcome him. What are you talking about?
Ugh, gross.
Want to come? No problem. I'll get my mom to make some lasagna. Joe, come over, man.
And what's the deal?
I met Joe.
I'm not gonna say it because you're just gonna get on me, and I don't want to do it. But fuck
it. There we go.
Fuck it.
There we go.
Fuck it. If you're a conservative politician, Pierre Poilievre showing up at the UFC was so lame.
Man,
he's like,
ovation, man.
Well, when they do it in America, Trump goes. So I guess I'm the equivalent of that. When he's trying to diss it, the whole reason he lost was because Canadians were like, we think you're just a Trump suck-up boy, and we don't really like that. So
Not
he
really.
lost.
No.
Yeah, that's why he
Antoinette's gonna
lost,
come down
AJ.
on
That's
you.
definitely why he lost, and you can dispute that. But that's, I mean,
Antoinette's gonna come down on you. I'm just trying to like.
okay,
where's
well,
Antoinette?
maybe she has a reason why he lost, but it seems like he lost because Canadians were like, we don't really trust this dude to stand up to this Donald Trump character who seems kind of dangerous. And people that voted for him don't seem to think Trump is dangerous at all, right? So I think, but, he's trying to distance himself from that image of, like, Canada Trump, and then he shows up at the UFC sitting in, like, the Trump seat. And it's like, well, dude, you don't just, I don't think he's a fan of the UFC, is what I'm saying. I'm not offended as a Canadian or as a, sensical man. I'm offended as a UFC fan because I don't think that this nerd actually cares about the sport. I think he's just showing up because he thinks he'll have some conservative bros being like, yeah, and he did because, it happens at the UFC, and he just went there for, like, the love with some sweaty men, which is a little odd. What's he doing? I don't think he's a fan. His wife looked bored to tears. It was weird.
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you something. Even if you're not a fan, of like the sport, and you're there, you're gonna get carried by the synergy of the place, regardless. Listen, he was there. Maybe he had a great time, and I seen a couple of like videos of him from different people and whatnot. It seemed like he was having a good time. Power to him. I don't care who comes, as long as they're
anything to see him lose that, like, shoe-in by-election that they're trying to push him into because he lost his own seat in his own riding. It would be so funny if he lost again.
They changed the map on him there, so let's
excuses.
Let's not be so harsh on him, eh? Listen, they changed the map.
Boy.
So
fuck
look,
that guy. He'll never be prime minister. He's awful. How about
he
that?
was pretty close there.
Yeah,
but
he got a little too close,
say,
and then he failed miserably, fumbled it. I'm sure he fumbles a lot of things in his life. Old fumbly. He's not a real man. He's been fucking in politics for like 20 years, his whole life. Be
pissed.
Wow, well, too bad. I really don't give a shit if people are pissed off. I'm just gonna say the truth, how I see it, and if you don't like it, then that is too bad.
Take that to the bank.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck.
Regardless, I'm sure he had a blast.
I'm not one of these UFC sycophants who's going to just subscribe to whatever, ideas that the UFC tries to put into my brain. That's just not happening. Not on my watch. AJ's down to
number
do it,
one.
AJ is fully indoctrinated, clearly. You got to get off the internet. It's really bad for you.
Listen, man, you got to stop believing like one-sided like bullshit. And then you got to be open, dude, to dialogue. Listen, to each their own.
Oh, fuck
to each
off.
their own, man.
What are you talking about?
Don't listen to the Chinese news network all the time. Listen,
okay.
All to say is this.
How about Alex Pereira? Okay,
you have to have love for everybody.
No,
that's what it comes down to, man.
No,
peace and love for everybody. As long as you support the UFC.
Not everybody. I don't support the UFC.
That's why you're not making Joe Rogan money.
Because I don't support the UFC?
I support the UFC. And you talk very highly about Dana White. We have clips about it.
I do like Dana White. Well, I used to like Dana White a lot more than I do now.
There you go, Dave. Somebody edited. Where's the production team?
What
you gotta
happened?
Edit this shit.
What happened, Dana? What happened? Good God Almighty.
What happened was he made a success at UFC 315, man. While nobody believed, I did. But not really that much because Dave convinced me that it would be a sucky card. But in the end, man, I was like overwhelmed with like the best freaking UFC experience ever. And the greatest part is the air conditioning was working too, Dave. That was a big plus. Okay. You know where I'm going at that. You remember. You remember.
Yeah. So Alex Pereira tweeted out like last week that he was really disappointed with the UFC and he was upset and he never thought he would be treated like this, right? And then
but I'm still trying to figure out what was he treated bad? Like what
hold
happened?
on.
I'm still
tell
lost.
I'm going to tell you because
Okay.
it became obvious. So he was upset with the UFC for some reason. And then he came out like a day later going, no, I was hacked. I never tweeted that. But I think somebody in his management team did tweet it because it was like perfect English and the guy speaks no English, right? Perfectly worded and everything from Pereira's official Twitter. And then it comes out, Magomed Ankalaev is saying, I was offered to main event UFC 317 end of June, but Pereira wasn't ready, turned it down. And the UFC was looking for other options for me. So Pereira, I think, was mad and was not hacked because him or his team were told that they were not getting an immediate rematch for the light heavyweight title because they would not be ready on June 28th for Magomed Ankalaev, and the UFC was moving on. And I really believe that someone from Pereira's team, if not, I don't think it was Pereira himself, but I don't think he was hacked. I think somebody that works for him that has access to his Twitter account tweeted that out because they were pissed. Because the UFC said, you're not ready for Ankalaev? Well, then you're not getting the title shot. Next. You could see them being mad about that. That's what it looks like. And a lot of people are calling it out. I saw Daniel Cormier saying this. A bunch of people are connecting the dots. That seem pretty obvious now that Ankalaev has said, hey, I was offered the fight and Pereira turned it down. And then the UFC was trying to get me another fight. You could see Pereira being mad about that. So I think that's what happened. But I think Pereira and Ankalaev will fight because they didn't find a new opponent for Ankalaev. I guess they're waiting for Pereira. Maybe Pereira's tweet spooked them a little bit. You know, maybe they're like, ooh, we pissed off Pereira. He's kind of our golden goose right now. Let's not kill the golden goose, right?
And again, that fight was questionable, right? Like some people believe
It was
they went
close.
to Pereira's way.
For
you know
sure.
what I mean? I thought Pereira won it, you know,
I
and
did
not to
not.
be like biased. It was very close, Dave. We were talking about it, going back and forth, thinking third round, who won it. And I thought, like, you know, it was really based on like,
it was
razor
It was
sharp.
one of those where it was like, it was 2-2. You know, one guy for sure won 2. The other guy for sure won 2 others. And then there was that one round where you go, ooh, that was a toss-up round. And that's how the fight is decided. And some fans will say, well, he won that round, so he won the fight. And other fans will say, no, he won that round, so he won the fight. It's one of those things. That's why you have to have an immediate rematch. But I think, like, I saw it Ankalaev's way. I thought Ankalaev won. And I think Ankalaev will win again. And it'll be more convincing.
You know what? Like, based on that first fight, I don't think Pereira, that was his best fight throughout his career. I thought it was a good fight, but it wasn't his greatest. And I think he was a little bit slow on the gun at certain points. I think if they fight again, it'll be a different fight. Really based on that first one, I think Pereira's coming in with a vengeance. I think he's coming in with the fact that he has to either knock this guy out or dominate him to win, like, literally enough rounds to say, if it gets to a decision, he's got the majority. I think Pereira wasn't his best fight. It was a good fight, but not a great fight. And that's what I'm saying. If it wasn't a great fight and he was like razor sharp from either most people thinking he won or lost, that shows you how good he is. And we'll see.
I'm looking forward to it. Don't know when it's going to be. They still haven't announced John Jones, Tom Aspinall. Doesn't seem likely. I never thought it was going to happen, but the UFC kept trying to tell us it would. And Dana White keeps saying it will, but he also said it would happen this summer, and it's not going to happen this summer. So there's that too. AJ?
Well, at least
I think we've
at
done
least
it.
we'll be looking forward to some good fights, you know?
Yeah, well, we'll hopefully see some good fights. The next UFC pay-per-view is UFC 316.
That should be a good
Victoria,
one.
Texas. Hell yeah! It's actually in Newark, New Jersey. It should be in Victoria, Texas, and Steve Austin should be in the main event. But Unfortunately, it's Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley. And Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. Double bantamweights on the line, men's and women's. Merab defending against O'Malley and Pena defending against Harrison. That's a fun
I could see Johnny. I see Johnny actually mention something here that we're not talking about, the Aldo fight, which I thought was amazing. He retired, one of the greatest fighters of all time in the UFC. It was amazing to watch that guy live.
Man, wouldn't it have been cool though to see UFC 316 instead at the Bell Center? Because this double main event is way better.
Man, it was. I'm telling you, Dave. No matter how you slice
on paper,
it turned out to be
on paper.
Yeah,
O'Malley
on paper,
is actually a star, you know.
I know, dude, but the Valentina fight with Mano Fierro was amazing.
Hey, your
the
girl
Aldo
got the
with
shit
Amin
kicked out of her,
Zahabi.
bro.
Did you see? I know she did, and it wasn't her best fight. It was just like a terrible fight.
She did not
I
look
thought
so
it was
good.
like she didn't look so good. I don't know what happened. This wasn't Mano's best fight. It happens sometimes, but she'll be back. And you know what? Amanda Nunes is supposed to be coming back. So there's a lot of things that are going to
Amanda's not going to fight at
developing.
125 if she comes back. She'll fight at 135 against the winner of Kayla and Juliana.
But you know what I'm saying? It could become very interesting in the next year of the UFC once again. Okay. and again, Mano Fierro in that division is not out. She'll be back, and I think she'll be on top at one point.
I mean, she's 35. She's going to have to win some fights quick to get back to a title shot after that fight, which wasn't really competitive for her. She lost clearly, and it wasn't super exciting. I thought the fight of the night was Amin and Jose Aldo. That was pretty fun.
That was insane.
The crowd must have gone nuts for Amin there in that third round when he almost gets knocked out and then comes back and wins. That was good.
Dude, that was insane. That was insane. He really took a beating there.
Yeah.
And then it came back, and
Aldo
that was a very
he ran out of gas.
He looked up at the clock. I saw that, and he was just he kept
after
looking
that
up.
It was over.
It was over. It's like all the gas in his tank was gone. He was just holding on in guard for survival. But again, it was really a strange fight. Aldo looked good in the first round. But look, nothing better to have a legendary fighter coming into your hometown. He didn't win. He got beaten by the local guy, which Amin did very well. You know what I mean? You got to give some credit to Amin to take a fight against a
Huge
guy
win.
that Conor McGregor dethroned. And the thing is that Aldo retired in Montreal. Dude, we'll always remember that. I mean, there's not enough hype on this fight. I thought the media would here in Montreal, whatever, push the fact that Aldo retired here in Montreal. The guy is one of the greatest fighters ever in the UFC history, and he looked good, dude. He looked good, but you know what? Father Time, like you said, after 35, man, it takes a toll. And you could see in that third round, I mean, the first half of that third round looked like it was over for Amin, but it just goes to show you how tough Amin is. That guy was driven by the crowd, the noise, the energy, lifted this guy up, and he came back from death, man. He looked like he was gone. I was like, oh shit, this is done. And Amin, man, he carried himself through that, and he ended up winning. And that's this is a Rocky story right there. That was amazing. I was watching it, I'm thinking, man, this is Rocky Balboa, man. Looked like he was just about to die and came back to win it. And, and you're not fighting a chump change. You're fighting Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
That was incredible, man. What a win to have on your career. Amin was impressive. I didn't think he was going to do as well as he did, but he did, man. And you know what? Power to him, and power to the team. And it's great to see a Montreal guy, including Marc-Andre Barriault, that won. Some local guys that really did well. I mean, Marc-Andre Barriault, that was a pretty nasty win, but man, And
now Barriault's going to get Shara Bullet next.
Is he?
Yeah, he's fighting Shara Bullet Barriault.
What? That's going to be crazy, man.
I know.
That's a big name, man.
Yes.
Shara
Bullet. Wait, when is that fight? Shara Bullet.
Power bar is there, man.
Sharabutin Magomedov. Marc-Andre Barriault, July 26th, UFC on ABC in Abu Dhabi.
That's a quick fight. in Abu Dhabi. Good for him, man.
Yeah,
he's going to be making some good money. Not getting
in Abu Dhabi now. Pretty sick.
And you know that he's not going to be taxed 35%. He's going to get like dollar for dollar in Abu Dhabi and more.
Yeah, I don't know how the Abu Dhabi economic system works, AJ.
Oh, they're very generous. Very generous.
Sure. Okay.
You know.
Well, it's been good, AJ. Thank you for being you and doing the things that you do. Thank you to everybody for tuning in.
By the way,
Thank you to Johnny North for being so big and jacked and awesome. Johnny
is like the beast, and I'm gonna go to his next fight. I couldn't go on Saturday because the UFC was like
Yeah.
Sorry, Johnny, I had to go to it. But your next fight, I'm coming. I have to bring my little guy because he's like one of your biggest fans. It's all about Johnny North. Can this guy do what Johnny North does? And I'm like, no. Is that guy like strong as Johnny North? I'm like, no. So Johnny North has a huge following, and I've noticed lately that he's getting a bigger following every fight, especially when he goes out into Ontario there, man. They love him there.
Johnny is a great pro wrestler, and we'll be talking to him tomorrow night on Wrestling Uncensored. We'll talk about the great career of the legendary Sabu, who unfortunately passed away this week. We will pay tribute to the suicidal, homicidal, genocidal Sabu. What a guy. What a character. Man. What a wrestler. AJ doesn't know who he is, but
I know Sabu, man. Even I knew who Sabu was, man.
Okay.
And it's sad,
Yeah.
Like he just retired not too long ago, and he looked. Yeah.
We'll talk about some Sabu memories tomorrow on the show and everything going on in the WWE and AEW. So much happening. AEW's Double or Nothing coming up in about a week. WWE Saturday Night's main event next week as well. So there's a lot going on in the world of professional wrestling that we will get to tomorrow night right here on the Ringside Report Network. Oh, thanks to Antoinette and Angelo. I see you on the chat. Leor as well. Members of the team.
Antoinette's not going to be happy with you, Antoinette. Don't watch the video.
Over at join.ringsidereport.net. Thank you for supporting like Antoinette and Angelo and Leor and everybody else supporting over at join.ringsidereport.net. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for sticking with us to the end. We would really appreciate it if you could help us spread the word. Please share this episode on whichever social media platform you use. Add a comment below and consider reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. We are an audience-supported network, so consider becoming a recurring supporter at membership.ringsidereport.net. Check out our website at ringside